Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Backpack to Briefcase series here at the Huntsman School of Business. I'm Elise Newberry, one of our career specialists here in the school, and today we've got Eric Joss with us. Eric is a business development manager at Juniper Systems, where he joined in November of 2020 and has been instrumental in starting and expanding the business development operations. Under his leadership, the development office has grown significantly, adding 4 new team members, and he has strategically utilized online technology and trade shows to drive business growth and development. Before joining Juniper Systems, Eric worked at Invacare, a world leader in durable medical equipment, for 23 years in many management capacities. He then attended Utah State University's John M. Huntsman School of Business, right here, this wonderful college here, as a full-time non-traditional student. That's awesome to see. Eric remains connected to Utah State, where he guest lectures each semester for the American Disability Education Program, and also plays a key role in hosting tours and Q&A sessions for the Huntsman School Pro Sales Program. So thank you so much for joining us, Eric. We're excited to talk about the S.T.A.R method today.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you. I appreciate it. You've kind of jumped in and introduced me well enough. This is my awesome family. I've been married to my lovely wife for 29 years. We have 3 amazing daughters. My older 2 are married, and so we've now have 2 incredible new additions to the family with their spouses. And I always tease our youngest that the pressure is now on her to not screw the rest of the family up. Yeah, we have a new grandbaby. And she will be a year old the end of this month. And so that has brought in a lot of new excitement and fun for us. We love being around her and playing with her. She's so fun. I also have a dog. His name is Buckeye. And you'd probably say, well, what's a Buckeye? Why is it named Buckeye? Well, I'm born and raised in Ohio. Just outside of the Cleveland area, and that's actually where my career started. And I'll kind of jump into my career a little bit. As was mentioned, I work for a company called Invacare. They were a world leader in durable medical equipment. I started with them because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I had a good friend that was working at Invacare, and he said, "Oh, you should come and work here." So I started working in manufacturing, and I found out within a few short months that I absolutely loved the company and loved what they were doing. And so I actually started working my way up within the organization at a very young age. I had people that had 15, 20, 30 years seniority, and all of a sudden I'm managing these people. So I got noticed as I kind of moved up in different experiences within the organization. And one day I had someone come up to me and say, "You'd be great in sales." I'm like, whoa, 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 I don't do sales. And I ended up talking to a couple of the outside salespeople. And I'm like, well, that's not sales, that's education. And so I shortly thereafter, I interviewed for a sales position, and while I was interviewing, it was kind of an open little area where I was being interviewed, and all these people kept walking by saying, "Hi, Eric, how's it going, Eric?" And the VP of sales, he's like, "I can't even ask a question, and someone comes by and says something to you." And so he was really impressed with how many people in the organization I knew. And so anyways, so I ended up moving to the Northwest. Never been there in my life. So my first sales territory was in Oregon, Washington, and covering Alaska. And I just really fell in love with sales. And so that's really my start into sales. And then short time later, after having great success as sales, I got into a sales management position. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I found that, during interviews, the more prepared you are, the more success that I had. So whether this is an internal interview or an external interview with a new company, I really found out at a young age that being prepared before I went in really helped me. With Invacare, I took on 6 promotions within that organization. And then with Juniper Systems, I've had 1 promotion in the short time I've been here. But just kind of a little backstory about how I became a regional manager with Invacare. There was an open position for the West Coast. And actually, it was all of the West, not really specifically the West Coast at that time. And I applied, and I wasn't moved forward in the process. They moved 8 other candidates forward. And when I mentioned to my supervisor at the time that I didn't get moved on, she was absolutely shocked. And she made some phone calls and said, "I can't believe you're not bringing Eric into this mix." So I kind of, because of her, I did get in. So they brought back 9 candidates to Cleveland, Ohio for interviews. And I knew that I wouldn't be selected. I knew they kind of already had the person in mind because it's an internal candidate. I was thrown in at the last minute. And so I went in with the approach of, you know what, I want to learn as much as I can from them. I had some questions that I wanted to know about the company, where we were going and different things like that. So I basically had about 48 hours to prepare before I flew back for the interviews. It was very last minute. And so I was really relaxed, and I was just prepared to go in and find out information because I really didn't feel like I would get the job. And so I went through a whole day of interviews with VPs and directors and everything. And the day finished. I felt really good about how things went. I learned a lot. I was able to actually talk about issues that I saw that needed improvement. And on my way back to the hotel, before I flew out the next morning, one of the VPs of the company called me and said, "Could I stay an extra day?" And I thought, well, that's odd. I wonder why. And 24 hours later, they offered me the position. And one of the things they talked about is they said, "We were so impressed with your responses, with how you came across the questions you asked." They said that there were specific questions that were asked that not one candidate got them correct other than me. And part of it was because I was very candid, very open. I wasn't trying to be something that I wasn't. And they really appreciated that. So that started off my career as a regional manager, where I was a regional manager on the West Coast, was very successful. Then I moved to the Rocky Mountains. I moved to Colorado. And then a few years after that, they moved me to Chicago. And I was a regional manager there over the Midwest, managing the largest group of sales folks. And I really learned from those experiences. So over the years, I've had hundreds of people that I've interviewed. And so I've taken little tidbits over the years with those people that I've interviewed. And so I'm excited to kind of share some of the things that I've learned, both personally being interviewed, and some of the things that I've seen from others. So I'm excited to be with you today and talk through some of these things. So here are a couple of tips that I'll walk through each of these. Number one, interview preparation is crucial. You've got to be prepared for the interview. The real purpose of the interview. Why are they interviewing you? Behavioral questions in the interview. Oh, these are always some of the hardest, but if you're prepared, they can be really easy. Preparing for behavioral questions with the S.T.A.R method. We'll talk about that. The importance of storytelling in the interview. You've got to be able to tell your story, your example that you have, in a very concise way. Practical tips for interviewing preparation. I'll jump through those things. So I'm going to start off with a quote here. The interview is not just about answering questions. It's about demonstrating who you are and how you think and what you bring to the table. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as well. So getting prepared. What is the real purpose of this interview? And the interview, it's to get to know you. So hopefully they've read through your resume. They're very impressed with your resume. Now they've called you in for the interview. So what do? And typically for me in an interview, I may go through your resume a little bit, but I'm trying to get to know you in a very short amount of time. So let's say it's an hour. I've got to try to get to know you and see if you're a good fit for my organization, and determine, are you someone I could work with, or do I have trust in you to go out and represent the organization? So that should be the real purpose of the interviews. I know sometimes I've sat in other interviews that I didn't feel that's what they were trying to find out. So you may have that. So I like to think of an interview as dating. And here's a quote. Job interviews are like a good first date. Good impressions count. Awkwardness can occur. And outcomes are unpredictable. You could prepare and you could feel very confident that you nailed the interview, and you don't get the job. And it's so disappointing. But hopefully you've learned some things from that interview that now you could take and move on to your next interview process. Questions. I just kind of wrote down some of the questions that I tend to ask during an interview. So you have kind of two different types of interview questions. You have a basic interview, trying to find out about your background and your resume. And then you jump into what some people feel intimidated or hard, are the behavioral questions. I like behavioral questions because it gives me an insight into you. Trying to find out how do you work? How do you think? How do you handle different situations? And that's what I'm trying to find out in the interview. Now, getting prepared for that interview. Hopefully, you guys have had some experience with the S.T.A.R method. And I think this is a really good method. It's not the only method that's out there, but I feel like it's a really good method that helps you get prepared. So you have situation. Describe the context with which you perform a job or faced a challenge at work. You may be asked a question, and we're trying to find out, have you been in this situation? You know, you're describing something to us. Then you have the task, explaining what needed to be done. What was the issue that you faced? The action. What steps were taken in that action? And then the final, which I think sometimes is the meat of it, is what were the results? What did you get out of it from your action? If you can quantify it with numbers, always do that. That's always impressive to hear the results in numbers. But sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes the question doesn't require that. But we want to find out the impact, or what was the outcome from the results. And that's really what you need to prepare for. So you might say, well, gosh, Eric, I don't have a lot of experiences. I don't know that I could come up with examples. I think you can. Maybe you've been in sports, maybe you've been in band or drama, or you've had other jobs, situations you've dealt with in your family, or even getting into USU. You've gone through a process. What did you learn from that process? A lot of times those could be good STAR method examples that can be used. One of the other things, sometimes you're like, hard to get the creative juices flowing. So you're trying to figure out, where do I start? You know what? I would talk to family members, talk to your parents, talk to friends, coworkers. And here's the difficult one: talk to your boss. Ask your boss. And I bet you all of them can give you examples of where you've succeeded in things, or you had a challenge and you overcome that. Start making your list. My personal list is very long. I think it's somewhere around 22 to 24 pages of responses that I've written down. Some of them came from interview questions that I was asked. And I got out of the interview and I reviewed it. And so then I wrote that down and said, well, that was a good response, but I could have done better. So here's what I'm going to do for the next one. I actually talk to a lot of people and I'll say, hey, what's been a hard question you've been asked in an interview? And so I'll write those down, and then I'll go back and answer them. And I'll use the STAR method for those responses. And I'll start to get prepared. I'll prepare my list. So what I've done, that did not come out very well in the slide. But this is a question that I was asked. And then I gave my response. I'm kind of disappointed that didn't come out right. But let me give an example of this. I know it's a little difficult to read, but describe a time when you had to work closely with a difficult colleague, and how did you manage to work effectively with them? So the situation, I once worked with a colleague who had a very different and challenging work style, which often led to miscommunication and friction between us. My task was to find a way to collaborate effectively with this colleague to ensure our work did not suffer due to these challenges. My action: I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with them to better understand their perspective and work style. During this discussion, we agreed on a communication plan that suited both our preferences. We also decided to combine our ideas to ensure more effective collaboration moving forward. What were the results? This approach significantly improved our work relationship, leading to more cohesive effort and success between us. So that's kind of an example of a STAR method that I've used as I've been asked questions in an interview. And I've got some other ones on here. We'll have to fix these slides so you can see them. But just examples of some of the STAR responses that I've written out through difficult questions that I've been asked. So let me kind of give you some practical tips for interviewing. What I typically do is I try to learn as much as I can about the company, what accomplishments they've achieved. Maybe they've received some awards recently. I learned about their products or their services. So I really understand if they ask me a question, I could potentially relate it to their product or services. As I mentioned, I have a list of my STAR responses. I review those the day before. I will review those before I go into the interview. And one of the things that is quite all right is to actually match up potentially some of the STAR responses and have them printed out or written out and have them with you. Now, I wouldn't recommend reading them, but just to help you as a quick reminder during the interview of what a good STAR response would be that you've written out. I recommend bringing a notepad with you. Have questions on it that you want to ask the company. And then if they ask you really good questions, I would write those down. And if you didn't feel like you responded as well as you had hoped, it's all right to send an email to those that you interviewed with and said, I didn't feel like I explained this well enough, so I wanted to give you a better response or more information on that response. And that's totally all right. I've had people do that. I've actually done that. Because I didn't feel like I answered it as well as I could. Maybe some things to avoid, mistakes to avoid. Just what I mentioned, not knowing about the company. I've had people come in and interview with me, and they don't know anything about the company. I've also would encourage you to read the job description and be able to answer questions about each of the things that are listed in the job description. You may have to create a STAR response from some of those descriptions in there to be prepared. If you're struggling to answer a question, it's okay to ask to have the question rephrased, or say, I don't have an exact response for that particular behavioral question, but I have something that's similar. And that's totally all right. And not bringing a notepad with you. Interesting story. I actually and this just happened within the last couple months, I ran into a student that he and I used to have some classes together. And I walked in to a company and he's being interviewed. And so I was really excited to talk to him. And he comes out and I'm like, hey, how did it go? What were your concerns? Did the interview go well? And he responded favorably to everything. And then as I met with the people that I was there to meet with, they noticed that I was talking to this previous student, and I asked them some questions, and they said the interview didn't go well. He wasn't prepared. Didn't ask us questions, and we were kind of disappointed. And I was shocked because this is a very intelligent person. He's amazing. And I know he would do a good job, but he didn't come off prepared. So always be prepared. And I've kind of talked about researching, have questions. I would encourage you to go on LinkedIn, find people that you may be connected with, reach out to them. I've even had people that I don't know reach out to me because I saw that I worked for the company and asked me questions, asked if they could email me some questions or talk to me on the phone, which I'm always happy to do. Really think about the questions that you have. Don't ask really basic questions, but ask questions about the company. Again, you're dating. You're trying to find out about them. They're trying to find out about you. So in with behavioral questions, they're looking for two things. They're looking for success stories, challenges or failures, interpersonal dynamics of you, because they're trying to learn as much as you can about you. So be confident in your responses and always come prepared. I would say that's probably the biggest hurdle that I see in people that I interviewed is they're not prepared. They don't understand the company. They don't understand the position. And for me, if you haven't taken the time to get to know the position, I'm really not interested in moving you forward. So be confident and be prepared. And just kind of leave you with this. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Don't give up. Keep going. You're going to have jobs that you interview for that go well. You're going to have some that maybe don't go as well, but take the opportunity to learn from them and take that information and apply it into your next job. So I want to thank you for your time today. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me. I'm happy to answer questions or even talk to you about a position that you're going into. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. This has been a really, really informative even for me, so that the write down list of questions and potential responses is something I did when I was coming out of grad school. And was really helpful, even outlining what were scenarios as almost like a springboard to be able to build those STAR responses. So it's validating to hear that someone else does that and that they have 20-some pages of responses, which is perfect. Because as you go through your career, you build on experiences. You never know. Maybe a terrible interview is a great STAR response later.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I do have a couple of questions for you.
Perfect.
And I'm going to leave up your contact information so folks can keep that going. But how do you balance sharing way too much information versus not enough when you're answering behavioral questions?
Oh, this is a good question. I've literally had people, I've asked a question and they've talked for 10 minutes and I get to the point where I don't even remember the original question that I asked. So this is going to sound weird, but I would recommend practicing. Practice with a roommate, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whoever, and talk through them. It should be pretty short. You should be able to respond within 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes. You're probably getting too long if you're going into 5 minutes, but within a couple minutes, you should be able to go through the STAR method on these behavioral questions. Don't be scared to say, did that answer your question, or do you need a little bit more information? I'd rather give you a short response and then build on that, because a lot of times you'll spur a question that I'm like, oh yeah, tell me a little bit more about how you went about this. And then it gives you the opportunity to respond and go into a little bit more detail. So stick to the basic facts, keep it somewhat short, not too short, but it's kind of a judgment call. How do you feel? But role playing is probably the best thing, because other people will say, oh, that was probably a little too long, or, oh, that was perfect. So that would be my response to that.
Perfect. A little plug for our services. Our career specialists here in the Huntsman School will practice interviewing with any student who comes to us. So we are also a great resource. And sometimes we even have questions that employers have asked in the past. So that's a great one. Okay, I've got one final question for you, and then I've got a couple of reminders for our viewers. So do you have any resources you would recommend either on this topic or just in general for career development and professionalism?
Yeah, I don't know that I have any specific books I can think of right off the top of my head. Podcasts are one of those things where if I hear something or I'm trying to learn something or get prepared for something, man, I will go out and just do a little research. I'm going to interview. Maybe I look for a podcast from an HR manager that's had some experience interviewing, and I'll listen to some of the things that they talk about, some of the tips and tricks in preparing. So yeah, don't be scared to use the podcast to learn other things and find out from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to take a moment to really thank you for sharing your advice, your insights with us and with the Huntsman School of Business. I know that we have a really great relationship in terms of you working with ProSale, with the organization I support a lot too. A lot of really great nuggets in this video. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm excited to hear success stories. I love hearing success stories.
Yeah, so if you've got them, viewers, reach out to us. We'd love to hear it. In terms of what's coming up in the Huntsman School, we always have events happening with our Focused Fridays, including the Career Expo, mock interview day, more backpack to briefcase videos coming up. So be sure to check out the Huntsman calendar. And if you liked this video, we have a whole playlist on our YouTube channel, along with countless other playlists. So this is the URL for our YouTube channel that will have tons of information. But more than anything, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks again to Eric for chatting with us about the S.T.A.R method.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.